And good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. It's good to be back after 2 weeks with the holidays, all the Christmas Eve landing on a Wednesday, and then New Year's Eve on a Wednesday. We had actually high school hockey last week, so having actual games is always better than just talking about it. So we have not had a show the last 2 weeks, but it's good to be back. It's good to see across the table. Still with us is BJ Brandt, and first show of 2026.
Yeah, this should be a good one. There's a lot to talk about. A lot was happening over break here.
I know, huh?
Between games, activities, and then you kind of look at the month of January and February, Chad, and it's busy.
Well, and you kind of get, holiday time is a lot of tournaments and a lot of non-conference, and now we get back into the conference, and now it gets a lot more conference heavy. I think because you started around Thanksgiving in both basketball and hockey, and there's a lot of either tournaments or non-conference games. Once you get past the New Year's, all of a sudden, a lot of conference games, and also you get to the point with, I think in hockey, it's about a month away from seedings for the playoffs, and basketball slightly after that. It gets late early, doesn't it?
Yeah, when you look at the Wisconsin Valley Conference right now, there's only 2 games played in conference, so you look at what's left. Like, it's going to be a lot of conference games, and that conference championship's going to get decided here with all of these with all these leagues. It's always fun. January is such a sprint. There's a whole bunch of transition that goes on when you think about it. There's a ton of games that happen, so not a lot of practices get to happen in the month of January.
Right. The
The other thing that happens is the semester calendar flips for everybody who's on a semester schedule. So like in the middle of the month, there's that transition there as well. So there's just it's a lot to handle in the month of January for these coaches and student athletes and people in the education world, because it's a busy month, because there's not a lot of time after once you hit February. It's an absolute sprint to get to the playoffs and the state tournaments.
Coming up on the show, we're going to talk a lot of basketball and hockey. Our guest tonight in the first hour, DC Everest boys basketball coach Jake Schalow. And Everest has been playing some pretty good basketball recently. First-year head coach of Everest, had some success at Merrill previously. Very interested to hear about his first year over at DCE. Jake Schalow coming up at 6:30. And then our student-athlete guest this week at 7:06, right after the top of the hour news, Mosinee hockey senior Tyler Bars. And actually, it's funny that this year you're here on a permanent basis, but you were here when he was here last year.
Yeah, it was right before Marathon Cup. In fact, it was the day before we played him, Chad.
Yeah. This year we waited till later, and he's the leading scorer for Mosinee. So they've been a bit up and down this season. We'll talk to him about what's going on with the Mosinee squad. They're in a battle in the Great Northern Conference. So he'll be our student-athlete guest coming up at 7:06. But let's jump in and kind of get a feel on what's going on in basketball. Let's start off on the boys' side. Wisconsin Valley Conference. You said it. Only 2 games have been played in the conference up to this point. You got Stevens Point and Marshfield 2-0. 7-2 Stevens Point, 8-2 Marshfield. DC Everest and Wausau East both 1-1 in the conference, but Everest is 7-2, East is 2-6, and then Rapids and West are 0-2. Rapids 2-6, but West is 5-4 after a couple of close wins in the non-conference. And since we last talked, I thought last weekend Everest was very impressive. They had a nice win we saw against Wausau West before the holidays, and then they were in a tournament over in River Falls, and they put up some big offensive numbers. Friday beating River Falls 93-68, beating West Salem 100-78. And the thing that jumps out, and something I'm really curious to ask the coach about, is they got these different guys that come up. Xavier Edwards did not shoot against Wausau West. I don't know if he shot in that game. He didn't score, and then he gets 28 points against River Falls. Ransom Dickerson at 26, and then Cade Felch and Luke Honor lead the way the next day with Felch with 26 and Honor 22. It's a team that has a lot of kids that are able to put the ball in the hole.
That's the first thing. When I looked at this and saw that Xavier Edwards had 28 points, I had a hard time believing that.
Right.
Because when we did watch him against DC Everest, he was a distributor of the basketball. He found people with the hot hand and was playing great defense and didn't have to shoot that night. And clearly he had to that night, and he wasn't missing, because you look at, thinking back to the game against West, I think it was Cade Felch couldn't miss. I mean, he was whatever he threw, it was going in, and it was his night that night, and obviously they're deep enough and have enough guys that can put the ball in the hoop, and they've been doing it.
You look at Marshfield and Stevens Point. They are the two teams at the top of the conference, both 2-0. And Marshfield had a good win against Neenah on Saturday, 57-45. Chris Pohl, again, one of the top players in the state, had 28 points and 9 boards. But Stevens Point lost to DeForest, 47-46. DeForest not a bad team, but they're, I think, D2, if I'm not mistaken. And Stevens Point had been looking really good. Saw them as well against Wausau West, and a very solid team. I don't know. Again, you can't, I think, take one game and make too much out of it. But that is an interesting loss for Stevens Point and Marshfield. Again, they never lose in conference. I'm curious to see if they can run it again now as we get more busy in the WVC.
Yeah, I think when you look at the matchups coming up in the Valley, there's going to be some big matchups coming. I mean, you got a rivalry weekend here coming up with Wausau West and East on Friday, and other conference matchups coming up on Friday. But, Stevens Point, the thing that people have to remember, and this is what's hard as a coach sometimes, is this is sickness season, and kids get sick and players get, banged up a little bit. And when you see a score like DeForest versus Spash there with DeForest winning, you never know the true story there. We just get to see the score and that. But, those are the things that happen this time of year as kids get back into the school and everybody together over the holidays.
But that Stevens Point Marshfield game coming up on Friday night is going to be massive. I mean, I think when you look at it, you play twice, and when you play the first one at home, you got to get that first one. And for Marshfield, they will be hosting Stevens Point on Friday night. Stevens Point can make a big statement, and Marshfield can just say, hey, we're going to continue to be the top dog here in the conference. But that's one that here kind of sets the tone in the conference as we head into January.
Yeah, that's a massive matchup on Friday. I mean, kind of to take control of the Valley early on here and have the leg up as you go through the second half of the Valley, or really the second. I mean, you almost have 75% of the conference season left. So there's a lot of work to be done in the Valley for those teams that want to compete for the conference championship.
Rapids beat Pines on Friday, 68-59. I was a little surprised by that. That was the second win in 8 games for Rapids. Brody Gilbertson, 34 points and 9 rebounds. They're 0-2 in the conference as they get set to take on DC Everest on Friday night, and then they get Stevens Point next Friday. So a couple of tough games coming up for Rapids, but it's a program that I think has started. I mean, last year they put the ball in the hole a lot. They weren't able to win a lot of games. I'm kind of curious to see if they're going to be a team that, I think it was last year actually, they had such a struggle, but late in the season they beat Wausau East, and that kind of threw a monkey wrench in East at the end of the season. So I think that's a team that's kind of one to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, I think when you look at the record 2-6. I mean, Pines. We've seen Pines play. They're a pretty good basketball team. Yeah. So for them, that's a really good win. And obviously Pines has played a bunch of conference opponents or a few Wisconsin Valley Conference opponents. So they've got some common opponents as you go into the electronic version of seeding, because this is where I don't really enjoy the electronic version, because you can have we'll say a middle of the road record versus a team that's won a lot and get a higher seed based on who you beat, when you beat them, and who they've beaten. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out as Rapids plays the rest of the season.
You mentioned East and West play on Friday night, and I think that's a significant game. It's always a significant game, but West had a couple of wins that they needed. They close games. They beat Medford in overtime, and then they beat Chippewa Falls by 3 in their last 2 games. East finally got a couple of wins, so I mean they got off to a really slow start. For both those teams, I think it's an opportunity for a bit of a launching pad, especially I think for West. You don't want to go 0-3 in the conference. Yes, they got the record that it's just over 500, but 0-3 in the league is still something that kind of would stick in the craw a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you look at the two matchups, you've got a pretty experienced group in Wausau West. I mean, and you've got a really inexperienced group, and I'm sure they're going to get better as the year goes on, as those kids get more and more varsity experience. And I think Friday night will be a great matchup for those two teams. It'll be a packed gym over at Wausau East, and I'd look forward to seeing that game come out, because it's going to be two teams that have to battle, and it's a rivalry game, and you throw in some of that the temperature and what people don't realize too is sometimes the social media aspect gets caught up in some of these student athletes' brains a little, and hopefully both of them can have clear minds and play a really good Valley game on Friday.
You're exactly right, and again, it's always such a wonderful atmosphere when those two schools do get together. But East actually does have a 1-1 record in the conference, and they beat Rapids. And sometimes those are the games that are we always talk about, say the Stevens Point Marshfield games, but it's those games between, say, East and Rapids or West and Rapids, West and East, that kind of sets up where these teams can be in the top three in the conference and put themselves in a position. And for East, I thought that was a very impressive win, actually winning at Rapids just before Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, the Valley, the way it shakes out, like obviously you've got the 2-2-0 teams right now, but DC Everest is probably wanting to play those two teams and get an opportunity to compete against them, because having watched them in person, like they're a very dangerous team as well. So you're exactly right. Any win you can get in conference, regardless if you're in the Valley, the GNC, conference wins are super valuable.
And they took Marshfield in a tight game. I mean, it was a close game. They played them once already early, 70-64. So, again, I'll be curious to talk to the coach about what he saw in that game and maybe what happens the second time around as well. And real quickly as well, after the conference games these Friday nights, the non-conference games next week, actually a couple of interesting games, and they both involve East and West again. West has Roncalli, who is an outstanding basketball program. They're coming to West on Tuesday, and Bondwell goes to East on Tuesday, and they're undefeated from the CWC East. So some interesting non-conference games coming up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's important the way that teams schedule non-conference. It's super important because, number one, it plays into your seeding in basketball. Number two, it's common opponents for people to think about those things. And you might see something different that you don't normally see within your conference, because as conference coaches scout each other so well. So you're going to see something different as a coach. The players are going to have to react to a different way, or coach as a coach, you have to adjust a little bit. So it's always interesting to see these non-conference matchups come, especially, you get these Tuesday games now as we go forward with the non-conference.
There are so many non-conference games with the Valley now. There's a lot more games than there used to be, and there's a lot fewer teams than there used to be in the conference. So you play a lot of non-conference games, and it makes the coaches and the athletic directors have to go through a lot of hoops to fill those schedules.
There's a lot of hunting for games, that's for sure, Chad.
Merriwood South Marathon is still undefeated, 5-0 in the conference, 8-0 overall. Auburndale and Edgar, 3-2 in the conference. Auburndale 5-5, Edgar 5-3. Assumption and Newman are both 2-3 in the conference. Assumption 4-5, Newman 4-7. Stratford 1-4, 3-6 overall, but they've won 3 games in a row after an 0-6 start. But Marathon continues to roll. They had games on Friday and Monday. They beat Neillsville 71-57. That's always a good matchup. Neillsville always has a very solid program. But True Thurs 21, Drew Wolfel 16, Garrett Bracewell 13 for Marathon, and then they rolled past Pacelli 68-24 on Monday. And again, they just have been just solid. Again, they always are solid. I don't know if they've really had that major test yet, though. I mean, they started late. They played, every 8 games, and they've done really well. They play at Athens, who's 5-1. That's coming up on Friday night in the Merriwood crossover. And then they host Stratford. It's always a rivalry game. They usually play each other 3 times a year, usually twice in the conference, and then they play again in the playoffs. So, I mean, but Marathon just looks so solid right now. And I thought that Neillsville game kind of was an early season message against a team that actually beat them a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see the Friday matchup against Athens. You'd like to think that the crossover there is going to be a good matchup. Both teams, I mean, still Athens only having played 6 games so far this year. Like that's not a lot of games. They're probably just getting into their rhythm coming back off the holiday break here. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. And as you said, I think you said the crossover games count. So
remember when Gress was here? He talked about the North being actually better than it's been, and we've seen that. I mean, we've seen that Athens has won a couple of crossover games, and it's really kind of making things a little bit more interesting because, again, these games, as you said, do count. And when the South teams lose to the North teams, it tends to be, it's a disaster. But it's happening a little bit more this year than normally does.
Which, I mean, that makes it super competitive. And probably the way the system is set up, they're playing the right teams, too. which matters when you look at it from the 10,000-foot view. When you have these crossover matchups, you want to make sure that you're playing the right teams so that they're good competitive games.
I saw Newman Catholic a couple of times over the weekend. On Saturday, they went to undefeated Tigerton. Tigerton looked really good, beating Newman 70-49. It was a tough one for the Cards. This big kid, a junior named James Brady for Tigerton, 28 points and 16 rebounds. And the thing that impressed me, and I think you've probably seen enough athletes that come through the high school ranks, sometimes you have those big kids who just are big. They don't really do much else, but sometimes that's enough. This young man actually has a nice little touch. He actually passed the ball well. He moved the ball well. And frankly, going into it, I'm thinking, well, Tigerton's undefeated, but they're from the CWC North. What does that mean? It means something, because that was a sectional game, and I was very impressed with them. And then Newman came back and won at Crandon 64-60 on Monday. But these are games that I thought you'll learn a lot. And I know that Coach Gress, I'm talking to him after the games, they learned a lot against Tigerton in case they do play again in the playoffs. But he has to go and try to figure out how to stop this 6'10" kid that can do more than just stand around and grab the ball.
And Chad, quite honestly, I don't, like, me, my basketball knowledge is limited, but 6'10" is a skill, and
then you add a little extra to
it.
And
you add some talent, some athletic ability to it, and all of a sudden you've got a really dangerous player that becomes very difficult to defend.
Let's talk about the GNC, because Mosinee is still atop along with Rhinelander, and that looks like it's going to be a very interesting race the rest of the way. Both Mosinee and Rhinelander 3-0, Rhinelander 7-1, Mosinee 7-2, Pines 2-1, 6-3, and then you have a dip to Merrill, Medford, and Lakeland 1-2. They've all struggled overall. Merrill 3-6, Medford 2-6, Lakeland 2-4, Anago 1-3, Tomahawk 0-3. But Mosinee was supposed to go to Antigo last night, but that game was postponed. I should have looked. I did not check out on the Rhineland. I got to look at that. I skipped it because I just made the assumption they were all going to be postponed. But Mosinee is a team that likes to play some really good competition. Friday night, they have Northern Pines coming into Mosinee, and that's not going to be an easy game. And Rhinelander goes to Merrill. And again, I think Merrill is still a team that can cause some troubles as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the top four teams in the conference are going to play against each other, 1-3, 2-4, and that's going to be a really good matchup and probably dictate a little bit of what happens in the conference early on here. Just checking out, it was postponed, Chad.
Okay.
They were supposed to play Tomahawk last night.
Yep.
Makeup date is to be determined. But yeah, I mean, you look at the GNC. Clearly, I think there's a top, but I also think there's a group that can probably dictate the outcome a little bit between those top two teams and how they play against them.
And I'm looking forward to getting Coach Lindsay in here again this year, because I know he's got some high expectations for Mosinee as they try to take those next steps. And they've kind of been knocking on the door, but it's not an easy route either normally for them in the playoffs. Let's talk about the girls here on the Valley side. You got Spash and Wisconsin Rapids, 3-0. Rapids 9-2 overall, Spash 9-2. And again, I mentioned I saw Rapids up in Merrill for the first weekend when West was up there, and it was very interesting to watch. They had this freshman who was just a terrific looking player, and Rapids is all of a sudden, because it was looking like early in the season it may have been Spash and then everybody else, but now it's Spash and Rapids 3-0. Everest is 2-1 in the conference, 5-5 overall. Marshfield has struggled, 1-2 in the conference, 3-8 overall, and East and West both 0-3 in the conference. West 4-10, East is 1-7, and you have East and West playing on Friday night. You have Marshfield and Spash. That usually would be for the conference, but this year Marshfield is just struggling, and especially putting the ball in the hole. I mean, I've been looking at their offensive numbers. They just are not being – and on the girls' side, I've noticed that there can be teams that just – you can play really good defense, but you still got to find those girls who can put in the hole. And right now for Marshfield, that's causing trouble. And that's one reason I think Wisconsin Rapids is actually much better, because they are able to put the ball in the hole.
Yeah, I mean, it's a skill. I mean, I think I've watched a lot of Wassa West. I think they're very similar. The days that they shoot really well, they're in the game, they're competing hard. I mean, I think when you look at it, they've defended well. They've tried to defend the ball really well. But at the end of the day, you still have to score your points, and when you're not, it puts so much pressure on the defensive side of it.
And the thing about West is, I did the game against Marathon, and 60-36, Marathon beat West last Friday night. West, in games that are single digits, are 4-1, tight games. They've been very good, and the only game they lost was to Everest in a very tight game. the games that have been more than 10 points, they've lost them all. So again, when they get a chance, they've done pretty well. But those nights that they struggle, it's just too much.
Well, and I'm sure if you look at your next level stats you got there, Chad, they probably shot a lot better in those games. I mean, that's
those games in Merrill, they did.
Yeah, and
both games they won.
You get to the free throw line a little bit more and get some different opportunities to score.
Merriwood South on the girls' side looking very interesting. Some really good teams in the Merriwood South. You got Stratford 6-0, 10-1 overall. Assumption 5-1, 8-3. Auburndale 4-1, 8-3. Marathon 3-2, 7-2. Edgar 2-3, 5-4. Newman's actually played some better basketball as well recently. 1-4 in the conference, 4-7 overall. I was disappointed because last night I was supposed to do Newman and Assumption, get a chance to see Assumption because they've been so good in recent years. But Stratford has been just outstanding. They beat Assumption early in the conference campaign. And Marathon, I mean, frankly, I don't think Marathon played as well as they can Friday night against Wausau West. We had Miley Hawkey on earlier this season. She had, I think, a night that she kind of struggled a bit, but yet her teammates were able to pick her up, and that's a much more well-rounded team, that Marathon team. And right now, they're fourth in that conference. I mean, that's a good basketball team, and the top four especially is really solid in the Merriwood South on the girls' side.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I was impressed with Marathon is they had many different players that were going to take over that game or take advantage of the opportunities they were given. And as you watched West try to defend it, it became very difficult because it was kind of the next person that had the ball was going to put the ball in the hole and continue on moving. I mean, I think for a while there, the game was, I think Marathon went on that 17-0 run.
Yeah.
And they just played and defended well, but in that 17-0 run, they had multiple different scorers. So it wasn't just one person taking over the game. It was sharing the ball and taking advantage of the opportunities that they had.
Absolutely. So, again, that's going to be very interesting to watch. And, again, a lot of crossover games coming up on Friday. Got some games between the conference opponents on Thursday with Stratford and Auburndale, which I think will be a very good matchup. I was impressed with Auburndale. They scrimmaged West and Newman back before the season. I thought they were the best team there, and they are going to, I think, be a big challenge for Stratford on Thursday night. That will be one to keep an eye on. And then those crossovers, again, are always very interesting. And actually, Marathon and Auburndale coming up next Monday will also be, I think, a very significant game, as Marathon needs to win that game, I think, to put themselves back in that conference race. And a non-conference game I'm going to toot here is Newman at St. Mary Catholic. They made it to the state championship game last year in D4. They're undefeated this season, and it's going to be a stiff test for Newman, but I always enjoy seeing those really highly ranked teams that are, I think, going to be a number one seed in the playoffs. It's always interesting to see those teams because you do learn a lot about where you kind of have to be in order to be competitive at the very top of the whatever sport you're involved in.
It's really important. I mean, I think it's important for the coaches to see it. It's important for the players to see it, and you hope in those moments as a coach that they elevate their play to the moment in front of them. And yeah, while on paper it might look different, hopefully it's a competitive game and both teams can get something out of the game.
And then the GNC, Mosinee is the only undefeated in conference play at 4-0, but they're 5-4 overall, and we had a chance to learn more about why that is a couple of weeks back in terms of their tough non-conference schedule. Tomahawk, I mean, you're just not used to seeing Tomahawk up there in the hoops realms, but they're 3-1 in the conference, 7-2 overall. Medford 2-1, 6-4. Pines 2-2, 5-6. I should say Rhinelander 2-2, 5-6. Pines 3-3, 6-5 as they defeated Lakeland last night in one of the few games that got played, 55-46. Lakeland 1-3, 2-10. Merrill and Antigo both 1-3 in the conference. And Monday, we talked a little bit with the coach a couple of weeks back about this game against Rice Lake, and Mosinee went over there and they led by 8 early in the second half, but then a 17-2 run for Rice Lake. And they went on to win 52-43. So Rice Lake 9-1, Mosinee 5-4, Peyton Jershely 15 points, Bridget Fry 11 for Mosinee. But again, I mean, you talk about a game that is going to really help you when you do get to the playoffs. That's going to be one where, number one, you can play with a team that's got a couple of Division I college recruits in Rice Lake. And number two, it gives the coach a lot to work with over the next few days.
I mean, that has to be a great film for them. I mean, for them to be up early by 8 points, that there's probably a lot of great things that they did up to that moment. And then, you look at the rest of the film and like, boy, there's a lot to learn from here. And those are the things, when we talk to Coach, that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to give the kids an opportunity to be successful against strong opponents, but knowing that the strong opponents are going to put them in situations that they need to learn from. And he probably got the best of both worlds with that film. Like, as any coach, you want to win the game, but the reality is you're investing in something for the future.
So that is a look at what's going on in high school basketball. We'll talk some hockey in the second hour, but coming up next, it's our coach guest for this week. And from the DC Everest Evergreens and their boys basketball program, we'll talk to head coach Jake Schalow coming up next. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO on the Civic Media app. And also you can catch us on YouTube at youtube.com and the 98.9 WXCO channel. With BJ Brandt, I'm Chad Holmes, and we're very happy to welcome in our coach guest for this week. First year at DC Everest, Jake Schalow. Coach, thanks for coming on over.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, let's just start off taking the job at DC Everest. And frankly, when it happened last year, I thought it was a good thing for Everest, and I think a good thing for you, because it was a program that it has a lot of talent. I think a good foundation. It must be very exciting going into a situation like this.
Yeah, it is really exciting. Kind of followed the valley these last handful of years after getting out of coaching, and had seen certainly some of the younger guys coming through, and when the job opened up, wanted to apply and was fortunate enough to get chosen for it.
Before you jump in, I want to ask you about that, because I think a lot of folks remember the success you did have at Merrill. It's one of those situations where you have to kind of battle as a small dog in a big conference like that. Number one, why did you leave the job? And number two, why did you decide, and how long, real fast, were you out of it? How many years has it been since you left Merrill?
Yeah, I stepped away this summer of the pandemic, so in 2020.
Time just flies, I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, number one, what just made you decide that it was time to take a break? And then number two, what made you say, hey, it's time to get back into the pool?
Yeah, so it was in part due to some of the listeners right now going, I've got my two little guys probably listening in. So when I had stepped away, my oldest was 1. And it was a challenge. There was a lot of time commitment that I was putting into the program, and I certainly didn't want to cheat the kids in the program at Merrill. But ultimately, at the same time, I didn't want to cheat my team, so to speak, sure, and my family at home. And we knew we wanted to have another child. So my oldest Tyson. When I stepped away, it was tough on my end, because I certainly love coaching and enjoy it, but I wanted to get that time with him, and then now my youngest Tate, and really getting back into it is their ages. You'll see Tice sitting on the end of the bench as one of the ball boys, and he's in second grade now, and he's just getting that a part of camps and showing up to the gym and wants to be at practices. And then my youngest is 4 and in 4K. So as they've now gotten older, it's gotten easier to have them be a part of it and not feel like it's so much of a choice, one side or the other, but now trying to blend those two worlds together.
So when you stepped away, like, what did you learn as a coach about yourself? And obviously you want to jump back in and have got a super successful season going. What did you learn during that downtime about you and just where you wanted to go?
Well, I think the first thing is I knew how much I loved it. Stepping away, and then you feel like, oh my gosh, like to have an evening, what is this? What am I supposed to do?
You do radio shows.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that was the first thing. But a couple of the things that then stepping away and now coming back into it of trying to use some reflection time, I think focusing more on our team. I was so focused and dialed in on what the other team was doing and scouting and preparation that I think certainly that helped with our success. But I also think that might have been a little bit of a added burnout to it because I was spending so much time breaking down film of other teams, breaking down our film, that I think I might have lost sight of the whole goal of just get your team as good as possible. So that's been one thing I've tried to change. There's still certainly times that I catch myself maybe overthinking, overanalyzing it, but it's all with good intentions to it as well.
Sure.
You have family. Your dad was a very, very, very successful coach. I almost found it surprising that, because it felt like, well, if anybody would know everything about what to do to make it to maximize it, it would be someone like yourself. It just shows again that you have to find it your own way in terms of trying to maximize your coaching abilities. But at the same time, I imagine that having somebody like that to have watched all these years has to have been an incredible advantage for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly mentor number one and somebody that I look up to a lot in coaching and personally. But yeah, it is something that you have to find your own way on, because what works for him and what worked for him at Kaukauna is not necessarily going to work or for myself and at Merrill or at DC Everest. So you're kind of finding that balance of getting as much information as you can take and stealing that knowledge, and then taking the parts of it that you feel like can work really well then in your own situation. But having somebody that I can give a call to, and we talk pretty frequently, and I bounce questions off of. And actually, as I'm coming running here from practice, this was a practice that he had come to today after school, so it was great to then get his insights. And he's never going to force them on me, but it's always something that I definitely want to ask him and get as much knowledge and pick his brain from what he sees that we're doing and where we could maybe catch an edge on somebody else.
Talk about your team a little bit. Like I was able to sit right next to your bench during the Wausau West DC Everest game, and kind of got a front seat to watching you coach and your coaching staff, and just talk a little bit about your team, what you like about them, and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I think the first thing in watching back from some of the film from last year that jumped off was just, I thought, how athletic we could be 1 through 5 on the floor at any given time. And then additionally, how much size, and maybe not true like you guys were talking about the 6'10" post player size, but we could put a lineup out that's basically essentially 6'4" to 6'5" across the board. Truthfully, there's not a lot of high school teams that can do that. So just from the start, I thought those were a couple of things that stood out. And then you look at like Cade Felch and Xavier Edwards and guys that have logged so many minutes already in an evergreen uniform that when you're coming in, it doesn't have to feel like you're necessarily starting over. You've got guys that have a lot of experience, that have played in a lot of big games, that have been key players that have needed to be relied on, that you have some backbone and some guys that you can really lean on in this first year as you're trying to figure out how the culture that you want. You're trying to figure out the style of play that you want. And having those two senior leaders that have a ton of experience under their belt has really helped to kind of curb that and help that ramp as we get started.
What did you think was the most important aspect in terms of trying to build the foundation? Because I think any new coach that comes into a program, they want to build from the bottom up and make sure it's very solid at the very foundation. What was the most important aspect that you tried to implement quickly to try to make this program as strong as possible in your first year?
Yeah, so I think it's two sides. One, you have to show the commitment level with the youth. So right away, as soon as we started, we had like a sunrise skills camp that we had done in the mornings, and then we had done like our summer camps. So I think getting involved and being a part of the youth program right away. And then I think on the flip side of, and maybe now after I answer that, probably more in line with what your question was, and then with the high school group, is establishing the culture and really building something that people care about. And from my end, showing the players that I care about them more than just if they can put a ball in the basket, but can we care and talk about how they're doing off the floor? Can we then talk and now build that up of certain things that we're going to care a lot about as a program, and what we want to, or how we want to represent the school and the program and our families and everything like that. And when you can get that starting point of buy-in and have guys that really care collectively about each other, I think that lays a base foundation for further and hopefully further success.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that. As I watched you coach, there was a lot of positivity coming from your bench, and it started with you as a coach. Talk a little bit about, so the month of January is a grind for you guys. You've got 10 games in 28 days, and talk about as a coach how you balance that, because there isn't a ton. There's practice time, and then there's always game preparation time, and just talk about how you balance some of that out, knowing you've got a lot of games in a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's not an exact science. A little bit of it is just kind of some feel. Like this week now, after this past weekend where we had back-to-back games, tried to have a little bit of a lighter practice on Monday, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, just really try and get good at certain actions and at certain things. The snow day yesterday kind of threw us then for a loop after going light one day, off yesterday. But it is trying to find that balance, checking in with players. How are our heads? How are our legs? How are we feeling? Are we feeling run down a little bit where we have to maybe dial back practice, or are we feeling good where we can really try and get after it and pick some things up and really try and just get after it more so to speak. But it is that is a challenging part, and I didn't even realize that it was 10 games in 28 days. But, with the 2 games starting the month right away, and then we got 2 games, and now we're right back into that Tuesday-Friday schedule. It makes sense with how that kind of had fallen. So balancing the road trips with trying to go lighter in some practices, heavier in some practices, and then we try and send out pretty much film for every game, and have a breakdown of our own film, and then a breakdown of what we can expect from other teams.
Offensively, you have to be very happy with what you've been able to accomplish early. You talked about how all these kids are capable of being 20, 22-point-plus scores. And I recall back in your days at Merrill, I mean, you ran some really good offenses. It always helps to have some of the talent that you've been able to coach over the years. But the thing I kind of said to you when he came in, one of the things that kind of shocked me when we did the West Everest game was how Xavier was just distributing the entire night. And I remember the last time Everest played West last year, and they let him go. He scored 30-some points in that game. And then I saw over the weekend he had 28. I mean, how does that occur? Because it feels like you got different guys who are willing to step up in different ways every night. And that's got to be, as a coach, something you love to see, that it's not going to be the same guy shooting 25 times in a night or 12 times in a night, whatever it may be. How is the mix been? How have you been able to establish that where the offense seems to be running so very well?
Well, I think the first part is that they are good players, so that does really help. But yeah, to your point of it, after this weekend when Luke Honor had 22, I believe is against in the West Salem game, that had put a mark then that all 5 of our starters had 22 or more in a game. So it does lead itself to being really balanced. I think we become a lot more challenging to scout, a lot more challenging to defend, rather than where it's just one player that you really have to key in on. But yeah, like with Xavier, I think those guys play so well together and have played together for so long that they truly, and going back to that first part that I had mentioned, I think they truly care that if whoever's open, somebody else is open, I don't need to force to get mine. I can give it to the next guy because I got trust that he's going to do the same thing if I'm open on the next drive. And that's a credit to the guys because that's, I mean, as much as coaches, you want to teach that and you want to lean into that and trying to get that, to get to that point, it really falls back to the players of buying into each other and trusting each other. So ultimately, it's a kudos to them to be able to do that.
What are you looking forward to the rest of the season? I mean, obviously the games are fun, and you've got a whole bunch of home games coming up here, but you finish, I think, 5 of your last 6 are on the road. Like, what are you looking for here over the next couple months?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the home games. We do finally have some home games. I think we might have been the only team in the state that couldn't get a home game in before the week of Christmas with having some of those snow delays and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm excited to have some home cooking here in January. And I think between the schedule that we have both in conference and out of conference, we have some challenging games that are coming up that are going to test us in a variety of different ways. I think outside of that first part with Superior, we haven't really seen any kind of funky zones or stuff that kind of aligns differently. So we with Adams Friendship on Saturday, they're going to be in a little bit of like a funky 1-3-1, 3-2 that ultimately, as you're stacking games and stacking practices, you're trying to have experiences so that by the end of February, early March, and you're heading into the playoff time, no matter what somebody's going to throw, you've seen it or had some experience to it. So between having some of those home games, having some road games where we're going and playing teams out of the area, going and seeing Hudson, going and playing Adams Friendship. We've got a couple of those other non-conference games that we're getting at either home or close by with like a Mosinee. I'm looking forward to having those other experiences, continue to grow as a team, and hopefully just kind of keep stacking days so that by the end of February, we're playing our best basketball as we head then into the first part of the playoffs.
Again, we're talking to Jake Schalow, head coach of the DC Everest boys basketball team here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Talk about the conference. What's your take on it? You're back into it. You got, I don't know if Marshfield's lost since you left. they've been winning so much the last number of years. Before we talk about the conference generally, you did play Marshfield in 70-64. What was that game like? What was maybe the difference in that game, and maybe what you're going to be looking forward to trying to improve on the second time around?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Marshfield's been extremely successful the last 5, 6, 7 years, and they were successful even the last handful of years that I was, or even really all the years that I was in it with Merrill as well. And they're really the, so to speak, king of the conference. And they've got really good players. They're really well coached. So you look at it, they're never a team that ever beats themselves. And I think that's probably the biggest thing to it. Certainly there's some teams that you can try and speed up or you can try and trap, or you've got guys that maybe will take shots that you can force non-top players to take shots that otherwise they wouldn't take. But it always just seems like Marshfield's never going to be a team that's going to beat themselves. And if you're going to go and beat them, you have to play a really, I don't want to say a perfect game because no games are ever going to be perfect, but you have to play a near perfect game, and you really have to go and knock the crown off more so than them give it to you. And in that first game, I thought we had stretches where we didn't play our best basketball. I think we've grown both offensively and defensively as a team that I think we would be in a better spot coming into it, but all teams would say that, I'm sure. And I'm sure Marshfield and Coach Fisher would say the exact same thing, that they've been getting better, and they've had a couple of big time wins here in the last couple of weeks as well. That when you go play them, you have to be ready for a physical game. You have to be ready for a game where they're not going to make many mistakes. So you have to make sure you're limiting yours as well.
What about the rest of the conference? You look at where this league is. I mean, you were part of it. How do you think the conference stacks up right now? How strong is it?
I think it's a strong conference. I think the first thing that jumps out to me and no disrespect to the players of the conference, but I think it's the coaches of the conference. There's no games that you just look and you're like, hey, we don't really have to prepare for anybody. There's no games that you look at it and you think that this is an easy one and we're just going to win by getting off the bus with everybody. Because you go up and down the line. Certainly Marshfield, and like I said, with Coach Fisher and the success they've had, Coach Krull being on staff with Coach Anderson and the success that Spash has had, and now with how young they are and still the sustained success, and certainly with Coach Anderson still being on the bench too. And then you look at Wisconsin Rapids, and I know it's Phil's first year there, but again, kind of falling in that Coach Anderson tree of coaches, they're going to be prepared, and Gilbertson's a really good player. Mm-hmm. And then you look again, it's the same thing with the Wausau schools. Coach Lemons, known him now for pushing 10 years, and it's never fun to go play West because they're going to be so disciplined defensively. Kind of that same thing. You're going to have to go and take it from them. And if you let them get comfortable and let them play to their game, all of a sudden, throughout the records, it doesn't really matter. That turns into a ball game. And the same thing with Wausau East. I know Coach Garrett got them down to the state tournament last year, and yeah, they lost a lot of guys. But in that the first game I'm watching, we had just struggled against Superior in the in kind of those
Thanksgiving tournament.
The Thanksgiving tournament. And in the next day, all of a sudden, they've got it into like a ball game going into halftime. And I'm going, holy cow, okay. Yeah, everybody said they lost a lot of guys and a lot of scoring and stuff. But you look at the way coaches scheme and backgrounds and success that a lot of the coaches have had in the conference. I think, to me, that's the first thing that jumps out. And then you throw in that there's a lot of good players, too.
It goes a long way.
Winter's a long season. I mean, when you look at, you guys start middle of November, you go till second week of March if you get to play as long as you want. And how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it fun with your players and families? And how do you keep it fresh? Like the coaching life balance is a big challenge. So how do you handle that stuff?
I think you have to make the most. You make the most of it when that time presents itself. So on like an off night, I brought our boys out to like the movie theater, try and go catch a movie, get away from it, go dad mode. And then, and certainly if they go to bed and there's stuff that I have to do, then yeah, still take care of that. But then like with the players, it's one of the things we talked about early, like throughout the summer, and probably something I need to touch on again, is finding the competitive joy in it. You're always going to play better when you're having fun. You're always going to, certainly you have more fun when you're winning. But sometimes you have to find those wins to build the momentum into playing better and doing that. And one of the things that even just stuck out to me from this past weekend in River Falls, and one of the assistants, Adam Daniels, had told me, he said it's like one of my favorite coaching stories right now from this in all of his years of coaching. He said that one of our players had come off, and this was kind of early in the game against River Falls as we were just starting to build our run. And he looked at me and goes, this is just so much fun how we're playing. And when you have that, that's that whatever people want to say magic sauce. Yeah, you really want to win, you really want to prepare to win, and you really want to play well. But when you can tie really good preparation coming into games, when you can tie in intensity and wanting to be there and ready to get after it, and then you tie in having a lot of fun, that's a dangerous recipe then. So for like this long season, not everything can be fun and just hanging out. You have to still get after it in practices, and you still have to continue to get better, but you have to find ways to manufacture some of that fun. And whether that's going out to Buffalo Wild Wings after a big win as a team, whether that's, I know we've been doing, or the players have been doing, like team meals, and it's awesome that the parents of the team are putting all these on. It's that type of stuff that has to take place off the floor to build some of the chemistry to then have that little bit of extra fun, so to speak, on the floor, which then kind of snowballs into being successful, which then kind of leads to having more fun.
Absolutely.
What does your team have to be better at if you were to maximize a very talented group. We've talked a lot about the positives. Again, that's it's getting better doesn't mean negatives. This means you know, because the competition in that bracket is always going to be incredibly difficult. What does your team have to be better at in order to make some noise once we get to the playoffs?
I think the first thing, and we talked about it actually tonight at practice, was we can't have complacency. And you ride the wave a little bit, and you now, I guess, going back to what I just got off on the tangent of saying of how well we played and how much fun it was. But then you can't have the letdowns then after it of poor practices or feeling like it kind of goes through the motions. And I think we've done a pretty good job of it, but there's still room that it kind of creeps in. So the first thing that jumps out to me is we just continue to keep coming every day with kind of that workman's mentality, just ready to get after it, ready to get better, whether it's the day before game and it's going to be maybe a touch lighter, or if it's a week out from our next game and they're looking at it going, oh man, we got like 10 to 12 hours of practice before we get to play again. So fighting that urge almost, or that maybe human nature of getting a little bit complacent, I think is the big thing. I think the second part, and we've started to continue to move in the right direction, but we started the first handful of games where we weren't shooting at the best, or at least consistent enough. And Cade's been pretty consistent on his shot, but as now we've seen a little bit of improvement and seen a little bit of success, it's kind of coming at that same time of us shooting it a little bit better, of making the extra pass, finding the open guy. So I'd say that's probably then maybe the next thing I'd lean to.
I got nothing else, Chad.
Well, I got
This has
one
been
more.
awesome.
I got one more question because you kind of touched on it, because when I asked you about the foundational pieces, and something I'd like to ask is, because we focus so much on what the varsity team is doing, that's but programs are so much more. And you talked about going to the youth levels. How does the youth levels look at DC Everest? Is there a lot of excitement at the youth levels for basketball at DCE?
Yeah, I think it's a growing level of excitement. So we run all the Green Heck camps at the Green Heck on Saturdays leading up to the season, and we tried to change some things up to gear up some of the level of excitement. They've got like a rec program of 5-on-5, and we switched a couple of things to get like some of the younger kids playing 3-on-3 and starting it with a jersey and making it a big deal, and making it where they get to run up and down. They've got our high school guys, air quotes, reffing the games and coaching the game, and I guess you could say coaching them, helping to talk through where there's open players. And we had a huge turnout for that. And then as it got now into traveling teams, we've had a couple of teams that now have had to split off into multiple teams because there's a high number of enrollments or high number of kids that want to sign up for it. So I think it was a good step forward from that. And now, if hopefully we can have some success this season, we can make it fun for families and kids to want to come out and watch the games. And I think we got a couple of guys that are some pretty high flyers that go and dunk it and build that level of excitement that now it can really kind of snowball in a positive way of, I'd rather have the problem where we got too many guys coming out at those younger levels. But it's step by step. It's not just going to be something that's going to happen overnight. But I think we're doing some of the right things to move that in the right direction.
Coach Jake Schalow, welcome back to the conference. Welcome back to the sidelines. Congrats on the good start, and best of luck throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Coming up, we'll have our student-athlete guest as we continue here on After the News. We have the top of the hour news update, and then Tyler Bars from Mosinee, senior hockey player, will be joining us in about 6 minutes. Big High School Sports Show, 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO on the Civic Media app and on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com, go to the 98.9 WXCO channel, and catch the show there as well. And, of course, if you missed the show, we always post it as a podcast. If you're on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, just subscribe to the Big High School Sports Show, and you'll be able to listen in. In fact, you can compare our guest because you can compare how he sounded last year to how he sounds this year. But it's great to have him back in studio for Mosinee, now a senior, Tyler Bars. And Tyler, glad to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the season so far for your team. It's been a bit of an up and down campaign so far. How would you describe the first 10 games of the season for Mosinee hockey?
Certainly it's been up and down. We've played some good games, played some bad games. First week we played 2 games. Pines, who I believe is still ranked number 1 in Division II right now, we played them good. They scored with 3 seconds left in a 2-2 game, and I was thinking that was going to be a great motivator with a tough loss like that. And then we came out and I think we lost a couple in a row, maybe 1 in a row, but then it's been a little downhill from there. But I think we're getting back on track with obviously Medford on this past Monday, and then practices have been going well. We've been working, and I think things are starting to click pretty well. So I'm hoping we can turn it around.
Well, now's a good time to have them click. You've got Tomahawk coming to town on Thursday. Talk about the conference a little bit and what that's like. Obviously, Pines is playing well as the number 1 ranked team in Division II, and Tomahawk getting bumped up to Division I because of the success they've had. But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's awesome playing high-skilled teams, high-skilled players, and they're really fun games. We know we have to come and play our best. And then you also have a couple games where you can go out and have a little fun, like Medford and Rylander. So it's awesome.
Talk about your game. Since we last talked to you, I think it was, BJ was saying it was right before the Marathon Cup last year, so it's been a little more than a year. How has your game changed? Where are you better than you were when we last talked?
Honestly, I think I even stated that I wanted to get a little better in the defensive zone, and I think I have done that. I still got a lot to improve on in the defense zone because I'm very offensive minded. But I think that's a key part that I've been trying to work on, and I think I've improved there a little bit.
I mean, throughout your career, you just surpassed 100 points here recently. Talk about what that feels like and what a great accomplishment it is, but what it takes to get to that level. This is now your 4th year, 3rd year really contributing to the varsity program.
Yeah, it's awesome seeing all the hard work you put in pay off. But I think having the teammates around me, like especially last year, like that was extremely fun with that line. And I mean, even this year, you still got teammates around you. They're helping out, and I think a lot of credit goes to them, and that's why I think I've been able to reach that goal.
Building on that, because that's something I wanted to ask you about, because last season it was a little bit different where you were part of that line that was so very successful. Yeah. How has your role changed? Because I would think it's, you as well as you know, that having the help on your line does go a long way, but you're still providing some really good offensive numbers. How are things different in that respect? Has it been more difficult? Have you had to do things differently on the ice this year, or has it just been a matter of getting maybe used to different players on the ice with you?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Last year I feel like I didn't have to do as much in terms of forechecking and controlling the puck. I could step up when the opportunity was right. This year we still got a good group, I think, and I just need to find ways to not do too much. That's my biggest thing is not overplay, and I think I have been doing that a little bit. So I think I need to try to just making the hockey play instead of just trying to score the puck.
So, senior leader, what's that been like so far, and how's it been received? Because you got a pretty young group, right? Like you guys turned over a lot. You've got a young group. They've watched you play growing up, and now they get to play alongside you. What's that like being a leader for your team?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I get a lot of respect, but I also get hard on them, and they understand that I still love them, and it's just hockey, and I'll do anything for them outside of hockey, in hockey, later in life, and I'm just trying my best to not only teach them on the ice what I can, but also be there for them off the ice.
Are you hoping to continue your hockey career after this year?
Honestly, I'm not sure at this point because I know I'm not going to be able to go make money and play. So I think that schooling at this point is the most important thing because I'm going to end up with having to work a job. And so, yeah.
Speaking of that, what else is there? We talked a little bit about it last year, but remind the listeners as to what other sports you play and positions and what you do within those sports.
I play baseball. I play second base. I can also play some outfield. I don't put as much effort into baseball, I would say, even though I still love it and I'll still give everything I got. But I also love to golf. That's a thing I love to do. My buddies and I had memberships last year. And
that's a hockey thing, isn't it? All these hockey players love hitting the links. I think.
There's a lot of correlation, Chad, between your slap shot and your golf swing. And sometimes it goes right to left, sometimes it goes left to right.
Yeah.
How good are you on the links?
Not very good. Every once in a while, I'll hit a nice drive and with the speed from the baseball and the hockey, but
that's the thing about golf, though. If you just hit a couple of good shots, that's enough to get you through it. Because then you're still outside, you're still having fun. If you have enough, if you just go around and not have any good shots, I've learned that over the years. It's not much fun. But you just have a couple, then you can just say, remember those and forget all the others. But
what other hobbies do you have?
I love to hunt, I love to fish, just get out in the outdoors.
That's I can't remember if I asked you this last year, but is there a favorite rival that you have, a team that really gets you going?
It'd be hard not to say Tomahawk.
Let me ask you about that because, last 2 years have to have been...
It's been hard.
Yeah, because, they came into your house the last 2 years in the sectional final and were able to win both times. What is that experience like where you come? And I think maybe BJ would agree that. I think the toughest game to lose is a sectional final because even worse than a state game because I heard a coach in the past say that state tournament is the cake. Mm-hmm. Everything you do at state is the icing on the cake. Getting there is really the hard part. What were the off seasons like? Do you think about it a lot? Does it give you that extra motivation going into this year?
Yeah, 100%. My freshman year, we went to state. Obviously, I didn't contribute a lot. I played a couple shifts during the state game, and I always wanted to get back to that sophomore year, junior year, and losing those games. It was hard knowing, I might not have another chance to play go to state. So. Definitely shooting pucks, stick handling, going on the ice. You're definitely thinking about it a lot.
What do you remember about that state experience? Because it's actually funny because we actually did the game, and the thing that jumped out was how incredible the support was.
Yes. Okay. I'll bring that up. That was the first thing. Going onto that ice is something I'll never forget, and seeing the whole the whole town was basically there. And that's something I want to experience again. The second thing is a lot of penalties. That's the other part I remember because we had a lot of penalties.
Those are two things along with your town. I think the entire town of Oregon was there as well because that is one of the things that I remember from that game. We were sitting in the corner. I feel like that's the only place we could sit to have a view. Just the environment of the state tournament. What have you gotten from sports? Like, what have you learned through your sporting experience that's going to carry you into college and adult life?
I think I've learned that it's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to put in a lot of work, no matter what it is, and determination. Determination's a good word because with those sectional finals and those, I think when we've played Tomahawk 7 times in the past 2 years and they beat us 6. That's not easy, but I'm going to keep coming, and hopefully we can change that around tomorrow night. And that's my last time playing them. So,
well, conference tournament, right?
I don't think we have it.
Oh,
this
you
year.
don't?
I don't know.
It's on the schedule.
I honestly don't know.
It is on the schedule because I was going to ask you about it because in the Valley, in other conferences, you get to play everybody twice, and you get to play them again. But with this is your one guaranteed opportunity to play Tomahawk. How does that change how you play this game and how maybe you prepare for the conference tournament?
Yeah, definitely. I think with the success they've had against us, we need to just go out and play both games similar if we get to see them twice. I honestly didn't know that we still had a conference tournament, so I'm kind of excited to hear that we still have that conference tournament because that's always fun.
What does your team have to do well tomorrow night?
I think we need to limit mistakes and just work as hard as we can, get the puck out because their first line is really good with Jonah Dickens and Jet Riley. So I just think we need to limit their opportunities, and I think just getting the puck out when we can is the way we're going to do that.
What does post-graduation plans, what are those? We probably asked you a year ago, and knowing how kids are, that plan may or may not have changed. So talk about what you're going to do next year.
Yeah, not decided on where I'm going to college yet, but I'm going to go down the finance path and, yeah.
Be an agent.
Talk about what a lot of people don't understand, whether you're an athlete or not an athlete. Like, choosing a college is a big deal. What have you done as a family in terms of maybe college tours or going to different campuses, and what have you done to prepare to make that decision? Because ultimately you're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah, I've only went on one tour for myself, which was the University of Minnesota, but that's where my sister is going to school. My parents went to the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, so those are basically two options that I'm thinking of right now. So I really didn't do a lot.
You mentioned a sister. How many siblings do you have?
I only have one.
Okay.
Only her.
And she's obviously older.
Yep, older. 2 years.
Was she involved in sports at all?
She played basketball and track.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite class?
I'd say this year probably macroeconomics.
Favorite teacher?
I'd say Mr. Derricks, who teaches that class.
What makes a good teacher? And I guess I can expand that. What makes a good teacher and what makes a good coach, in your opinion?
For teacher, I think just giving us the opportunity to learn and giving their best effort and teaching us. And the same thing for coach. We had I'd say it's a survey to fill out at the beginning of the year, and he asked what he expected himself to give to us as players, and I just said to give in the same effort that we give, because if we're not giving effort, he probably won't give an effort. But if we're working our tail off, I expect him to do that, which I think is going pretty well right now.
What intrigues you most about finance and going into the finance world?
I don't know. I just love numbers. It's weird. I just love numbers.
Positive ones.
Yes.
Keep the plus minus above.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you. Kind of going back, because one of the things that's always been interesting, it's been over a lot of years around here, is that there is great support for the athletics at Mosinee.
Mm-hmm.
How does that go into, because there's been a lot of success, I think a lot of successful teams. You've had a lot of, baseball teams have been really good for a number of years. Hockey teams always right there knocking on the door. How much does that support within the community help the athletics and the athletes themselves at Mosinee?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Going to a game and seeing the rink packed, or seeing the baseball field packed, or even going to a football game, even if I'm not playing, because obviously I didn't play football, but just the students and the whole bleachers are filled, and that really motivates someone, because you don't want to lose in front of your hometown. So yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I'm really intrigued by this finance piece here. So you're looking at Minnesota. You're looking at La Crosse.
Are you thinking of going into a different line of work? Maybe going
nope.
to finance
I am
yourself?
set in education.
Okay.
Chad.
Maybe you can go into finance.
Maybe I'll go into sales. Who knows?
There you go. I got some information.
Yeah, right. When you went to the Minnesota campus, because I've been there, and it's absolutely gorgeous campus. What they're two different places, right? La Crosse and Minnesota. What would make you go one way or another between those two?
If I was gonna go to Minnesota, I think it's because of the sports, because I loved going to the sports games. La Crosse, I have a bunch of buddies going to that school, and we could room and then eventually probably grab a house together, which would also be extremely fun. So
That might be too much fun, though. Speaking of your buddies and stuff like that, who else on your team do you look at as leaders besides yourself? Who are the guys that are spark plugs for your team?
I think a lot, but specifically Isaac Lewins. I think he's a big leader, and I'll talk to him if I need help on anything. If he'll talk to me if he needs help on anything. I think we're good leaders, and I hope the underclassmen feel that way too.
And who else are on the ice? You need to step up. I mean, not that you haven't stepped up, but the guys that will help you in those tight games, as you said. We go down to the wire against Pines and like, who are some of the other keys to your team?
Obviously we lost a lot of seniors last year, and I know that we have a freshman class with a bunch of talent, including Rebutal and Evan Gwitt. So I think they can really step up, which they have been, and fill in the spots of the players we lost last year. And I think if they can continue to do that and everything else starts to click, I think we can make it happen.
That's a lot of a ask for a freshman, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. But they're both confident in each other. And I tell them all the time to play confident, and I'm confident in them. So I think they got it.
Sometimes as a player, you might not think of this next question, but as a coach, I know we think about it all the time. So when you guys go through your conference, you guys play Pines, you play Lakeland, you play Tomahawk, you play all those teams together, and outside of this year, that's pretty much your path to the state tournament. How does that, maybe getting to play someone a third time, what is that like? And what as a player, what's your lens? Do you even think about those things? I mean, as a coach, you think about it all the time, but as a player, how does that change maybe your experience as you prepare for the playoffs?
No, it definitely has a big impact. Even with Tomahawk getting moved up, we know what they're going to try to do. Jonah's going to try to take the puck and go and score, which he's extremely good at, and we even talked about that today. We got to understand that we got to watch him at all times, but it also builds a lot of motivation, and because we just lost to Pines 3-2, and we might not get to see him until the sectional final if that ends up happening, and so yeah, we definitely want to get him back for that hard loss. So,
You got any other questions before the final one?
Nope. Ready for it.
Well, you know what our final. Well, maybe you don't remember. I don't know. I remember. I guess that's the whole point. But we kind of touched on it there. You talking about your freshman teammates and generally, based on your experiences, what piece of advice would you give a younger player that's just starting their journey? I mean, you said it. You actually had a chance as a freshman to be out on the ice at the state tournament, and now you're a leader here as a senior. Based on your experience, what piece of advice would you give a young person just starting their journey?
Yeah, honestly, I think I tell the freshmen on our team this a lot, and I think my answer might be a little different than last year, but I'd say enjoy it, but also work as hard as you can, because you don't know when that opportunity is going to be your last opportunity, and mine's coming down to the end here, so I don't want them to have any regrets.
One more quick question. How much are you going to miss hockey?
Oh, I'm going to miss it a lot. I don't know. I don't think words can describe, not even obviously the hockey aspect, but just being the team, the locker room, playing ping pong, watching TV. It's just, I don't know. Nothing can describe that.
Tyler Barrs, senior for the Mosinee hockey team. Number one, good luck against those Tomahawk Hatchets tomorrow night.
Thank
and
you.
Best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick time out, come back, talk some more hockey as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though,
What's going on?
he's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team, and ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck, yes. That'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Also on YouTube, youtube.com, and the 98.9 WXCO channel. Just heard a spot brought to you by the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association. You're wearing right across from me the logo, so it all comes together. He's BJ Brandt, Athletic Director at Wausau West High School. I am Chad Holmes, and again, terrific guests as we get a chance to talk basketball and hockey. Tonight, a basketball coach and a hockey player. And it's interesting because a year ago when we had Tyler Bars on, he was a junior and had a lot of time left, and now he's a senior and is heading down the stretch. And it goes by so very quickly.
It does, and it's interesting just to get the reflective moment for him to think about how he answered it a year ago and how he's, his roles changed this year and how leadership matters and the experience that he gives the kids that are, younger than him matters. And you could see it. He cared a lot about that responsibility.
He mentioned the fact that a couple of freshmen are actually being asked to carry a pretty big load for Mosinee. That's not easy, is it?
No, it's really hard for a freshman sometimes to come into the varsity level because you're as a 15-year-old kid playing against 17 and 18-year-old kids, and there's a lot of growth that happens there. But obviously those two guys have had some success for them because they're both on the power play. They both have to contribute night in and night out for them to have success.
Real quick question based on that. You've been around sports, especially football and hockey. At the high school level, for a freshman, which sport do you think is the biggest challenge to make a big impact?
Boy, I mean, I think it's hard for a freshman to make impact in any varsity level, like significant impact. Like you have to be a really high level player, whether it doesn't matter the sport. You've got to be number one. You have to be physically mature and have matured early to be able to compete against those older kids night in, night out. You have to have some mental maturity, knowing you're going to deal with a little bit of pressure when you're on that varsity level. But boy, that's tough. I mean, the few freshmen we've seen this year, I think Everest girls basketball as a freshman who's contributing pretty well. And you look at Mosinee hockey, and you just look around the sports. There's not a ton of freshmen that are making impacts. But what people don't realize is when those kids get that experience, how impactful that growth can mean in year 2, 3, and 4. Yeah. And that's where you look at what both Reed and Evan are being able to do this year. They're gaining a ton of experience for the future.
Well, let's talk some hockey. And Wisconsin Valley Conference on the boys' side, Stevens Point, the only undefeated team in the league. They are 3-0 in the conference, 11-1 overall. Wausau West 3-1 in the conference, 12-1 overall. Marshfield 2-1 in the conference, 4-6 overall. Everest 2-3, 7-5 overall. Rapids 1-2, 4-6 overall, and EMU is 0-4 and 2-8 overall. We have not been together since the big game between Wausau West and Stevens Point. And I was actually talking to Coach Brown today. I was over at practice, And, looking at what Stevens Point has done both before and after that game, they have not really had that kind of game. And West just was not West that night. They haven't had that kind of game either. What was your overall take on that night? Because, frankly, based on the whole of the experiences for these teams this year, that 6-0 win for Stevens Point was, I think, a big surprise.
I think it was a surprise for everybody. I mean, it was hard. 20 seconds in, you go down 1-0. The couple misplays with the puck, and it ends up in the net. And the rest of the period was pretty even. That first period, I think there was a power play goal at the end. You can't leave Grady Miller open on the side there because he's an experienced, skilled player, and he finished the play there. And then you look at the second period was. Boy, their goalie made some outstanding saves in the second period where if a couple of those go in, that changes the momentum, it changes the outcome. And then they go to the other end and just have some defensive breakdowns. I mean, you looked at the personnel on the ice during that time. It's guys that are very early in their varsity career and maybe a couple of them the first time skating a regular shift at varsity. So you get into those moments, and it separates the game a little bit. So I don't think 6-0 was an indicative score to what that game was, but that was the result. And I think when I watched the game, it was a different West team. Like that wasn't the team that you had watched the previous few games. And
no, the Edgewood game. I mean, that was right before that. It's like it was. And the thing about it is. That was a tough environment. I mean, West this year have played at U School and even at Waukesha. I've noticed this year, these environments, there's been an energy in these buildings so far this year that I thought would make them really ready for the Willets. And for whatever reason, and I was actually saying, I think again to Coach Brown, that I remember when West was always winning there. And now all of a sudden, it seems like there is something that is just not working for West at the Willets.
Well, sometimes as a coach, it's really hard to control the 5-inch space between student athletes' ears, and I think sometimes that's where it begins. When I looked at how West played in the previous games and how they played in that game, clearly they didn't want to take penalties. And when you look at Edgewood, they took penalties and they played physical. And I think when you looked at, and obviously that's not advocating for penalties, but there was a physicality to their game that I just didn't think was there when they played against Bash.
It reminds me of tennis, because sometimes a player that goes for the lines, sometimes you're going to miss the lines. But if you just play it safe and you go way too far inside the lines, your opponent's going to hit it back. So you got to find that line, and you got to get as close to that line as possible. But if you don't get close enough, it's going to come back and bite you.
Well, and I think that was a huge part of what that game was. I mean, the place was packed, but it was quiet. Like it was not a loud Stevens Point crowd. It wasn't a loud Wausau West crowd. It was just a lot of people there wanting to watch some really good hockey and two really good hockey teams. And if you look at common opponents before and now common opponents after, they're on pace to meet again. Coming up in this month to play another outstanding game at Marathon Park.
And West did respond, though, last week at Cornerstone and won 3 games in a row. I do find it interesting that in his first year, Travis Brown goes over to Eau Claire and wins twice, and then goes over to Cornerstone and wins 3 times. I don't remember you doing that very often.
Wow, Chad. I believe we did win it that first year.
Yes, you did.
We did have a
It's
championship.
been a while.
Honestly, it's been a little bit of a mirror of first years when I think about what Travis has been able to do and what the players and coaching staff have been able to do.
And Pete just hand over to these great teams, I tell you. It's pretty. But based on, again, that was a tough loss at Point. To come back and score 24 goals in 3 games, I thought was a really good bounce back for West.
Great bounce back. I mean, when you look at they went over there and the schedule wasn't great for them to play a 12:30 game and then 2 7:00 games. So there's what people don't realize.
Not great for me either.
Right, and the weather didn't help. What people don't realize when whether it's DC Everest basketball going to stay overnight or West hockey or all these teams when they travel. There's a lot of entertainment that needs to be done from the coaching side of it and the player side of it, and then you want them to be ready and prepared to play the game, and they were able to do that 3 games in 3 days.
Stevens Point did lose, and they lost to Neenah Hortonville Menasha 4-2. What's your take on that? Because there have been some folks talking that You don't want to go back into the playoffs undefeated again.
Well, I mean, if you're Stevens,
you never want to lose a game.
you never want to lose a game. You never want. But I can tell you, maybe from the coaching staff perspective, there's a little humble pie maybe that was received, and honestly, there's probably some situations in that game that they needed to be in that they weren't in last year until the Chippewa Falls game. So I mean, when you look at the totality of it, the full picture of it, there's probably a lot of learning that happened and some excitement for Neenah as they beat Spash, who had been unbeaten in a lot of games.
Breaks up that 1-2-3 sectional at the top of the state rankings.
It did.
And also, I think for Stevens Point, that tournament was quite a challenge. I mean, they played University School. And you talk about the similarity in some of the scores that West and Spash had. West had a tough 2-1 win. They had a tough 3-1 win. They were actually behind, like West was, 1-0. They came back and won. They had the Neenah game. They had Verona, again, a team that West played in their final game over in Green Bay. Verona then came over to Spash, and it was a very similar game. They whipped up on Tomahawk. They kind of broke it open late. But Stevens Point, I thought, again, you love seeing how both these teams are just challenged almost every single game.
Well, I think what you get is they get other people's bests.
Yeah.
And that's what's challenging sometimes as a coach is you're getting everybody else's best, but you don't know if you have yours, and that's the challenge. And obviously both those teams have had a ton of success so far, and this month determines a lot as you get going into the seeding meetings and things that happen about a month from now. And it'll be fun to watch this. They're on a collision course, I believe, January 22nd.
2 weeks from tomorrow, but coming up Saturday, Hudson comes to Stevens Point. Massive game in that bracket, isn't it?
Big sectional game. I mean, and good for Hudson for finally scheduling somebody over here since they dropped us. But it's going to be a great game. I mean, it'll be a well-watched game. 2 top 6 teams playing each other. Hudson comes on it's at the Willett, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be a probably a well-attended game and certainly one that a lot of people around the state will be watching.
I think I'm going to go down there and watch that one myself.
I guarantee you won't be the only Wassa person down there, Chad.
But it should be an outstanding game. And real fast, I think Hudson has to win that game if they want to be 1 or 2 in that bracket.
I mean, I think the winner,
assuming that these teams do what they're doing up to this point.
Yeah, what's interesting with Hudson is they play their conference, but this is the only team they play over this direction. Yep. So it determines a lot for them, because when you look at, as coaches compare things, they're comparing conference champions or conference second place to other teams and how you did in your conference, and you're looking at common opponents, and obviously Hudson's got a very Minnesota heavy schedule, so it's a massive game in terms of what people will argue about in the seating meeting.
And one other question, I was just looking at earlier the standings in the Big Rivers, because it has such a big factor in that bracket for Wausau West and Stevens Point and Everest and everybody else. What's your take on the Big Rivers so far?
Right now when you look at it, Pines is obviously playing really well. They've really
Big Rivers.
Oh, Big Rivers. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's really interesting over there. I mean, you've got some up and down play between North and Memorial. You're a little bit unsure what you're going to get there. Right. Hudson seems to be the playing the best throughout that. New Richmond's been a little bit up and down. They just lost a game against River Falls. So
it doesn't feel, again, I'm going to throw this out there and maybe you can respond to it. It doesn't feel like it's quite as strong as it was.
I think the depth isn't there. I mean, you look at New Richmond from a year ago versus New Richmond now, they lost a lot. You look at over the last 2 years what Eau Claire Memorial's lost. Look at what North has been pretty flat. I'd say they're a little bit above this year where they were a year ago. Rice Lake's always going to compete hard against you. You've got River Falls has good goaltending, so that night, the goaltending on any given night can change that outcome. I would say you're probably correct, but I think when you get to January and you're playing at Hudson, or Hudson's going to Eau Claire this week, you've got North versus Memorial coming up tomorrow, I think, and so there's some big matchups yet coming. And Chippewa Falls, Chippewa Falls is in that, and they've been competitive. It'll be interesting to see how that conference shakes out.
I think generally the Valley is better, because we talked about West and Spash quite a bit, but let's talk about some of the other teams right in the middle. Marshfield and Everest. Marshfield on Saturday beat Viroqua 3-0. They had 3 third-period goals. They had a 39-18 edge in shots. And then last night, one of the rare high school events that was played, Everest fell behind 3-0 over at Thomas Sparta. They were down 4-2 late in the third period. They got a goal with 1:05 left from Gabe Simonson to make it 4-3. And then with 12 seconds left, Cole Van Slyke lit the lamp to force overtime. And then finally, Caden Allen had an overtime game-winning goal as well. For Everest, I mean, frankly, they could not afford to lose that game.
Well, they've been a little bit of a roller coaster. I mean, they're a very senior heavy team that has won probably the games they should, and there's a few games that they would want back to get on the W column. But
Marshfield.
I think that would be the first one on the list. But they're well coached. They're gonna play well down the stretch, and when you have Griffin, that's gonna be a big difference.
That's who you don't want to play in the first round,
right? I mean, when you look at
a goaltender like that,
as I've told you, when you have senior goaltending in the playoffs, it changes the dynamic. When you have a senior heavy team, it changes what their compete level and because there's a finality to it for a lot of those guys.
What about Marshfield? They had that good win against Everest. They've been 4-6 overall, which is not great, but at the same time they've won 2 of their first 3 conference games. What are your thoughts on Marshfield?
I mean, much improved.
Yeah,
when you look at over the last 2 years, their coaching staff has been able to get them to a point where they're improved. They got more skill. They're Division II right now, so for them, they're preparing themselves for the Division II playoffs, and you got to like the way that they're playing. They're winning tight games. They're competing hard against teams for a period of the games. When you look at like the game against Wausau West, it was much closer than the end of the game score was for a long period of time. So they've been able to sustain competitiveness, and then to get a tight game victory over Viroqua, and it's probably a situation where the goalie was playing really well, and you got to learn how to solve the goalie.
And then finally, I think even the bottom of the conference is better. I think both Rapids and EMU are better than they were a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, Rapids will be my first time seeing them. I'll see them tomorrow when they play Wausau West at home. Knowing what they have in their upper level, they've got Griffin Schindler. They're led by him, and he's been somebody who's played almost every varsity hockey game that he can as a senior and a 4-year player. I think for them, they've got some goaltending that has been good at times, and then they've had the opposite version of that too. But when you look at East Merrill, I think they're very improved. When you look at their top 5, when they put their power play out there, they can whip the puck around. They're moving it and certainly competing a lot different than they were a year ago.
Yep, and they took Rapids to OT and almost had a conference win. And then as we look ahead, we have in the conference tomorrow night, Rapids at West, 6:35 airtime right here on WXCO. Marshfield at Stevens Point, DC Everest at East Merrill. And then, of course, those non-conference games, West will host a tournament. EMU is actually hosting their own event as well. Stevens Point hosting Hudson. All these teams are going to be pretty busy over the next few days. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the West has 3-3 here. East Merrill's got 3-3. That's a challenge as a coach, but it's the time of year where you have to test your team. You have to learn more about your team as you prepare for the second half of the month. Great Northern Conference, Tomahawk 4-0, 9-2 overall. Pines 3-1, 9-2 overall. Wapaka 3-1, 7-5 overall. Mosinee 2-1, 5-5 overall. Antigo 2-1, 8-3 overall. Lakeland 0-2, 3-3 overall. Medford 0-4, 1-8-1 overall. Rhinelander 0-4, 0-10 overall. Tomahawk, and we kind of touched on it. They played Amory, and Amory, I think it was Amory they played in the semifinals last year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
yep.
So they beat them in the state semifinals a year ago, and Amory went to Tomahawk, won 4-0 on Friday, 53-14 edge in shots. And I know that Tomahawk had a bit of a rough go of it in that Neenah tournament last week. Are they finding this transition? They've juiced up the schedule a little bit. That maybe a game like that after the 3 games over the holiday, that they kind of took it down a notch. That maybe that took a little out of them. It'd be interesting to know if there are any injuries. I mean, this is the time of year when you get sickness and injury, and when if you were to lose an impact player for even a little bit of a game, it's going to change the dynamic of their lineup a little bit. But certainly they're playing in that Neenah tournament. They've been in for a couple of years now, and obviously Amory must be playing really well.
Yeah.
They're a team that played well a year ago,
and probably preparing for a long playoff run again. Anytime you can go to Tomahawk and get a win, I think a lot of teams are going to be happy with that.
Absolutely. And that will be an interesting game between Tomahawk and Mosinee tomorrow night. And I got a feeling that Mosinee, just listening to Tyler Bars, that they're going to, you hear about, getting their best. I'm pretty sure Tomahawk's going to get Mosinee's best tomorrow night.
I think so. I mean, it's the only time they're guaranteed to play them. So you want to make sure you give them your best and play your best. I mean, I think when you look at that conference, there's upper half, lower half going on right now, but everybody's still chasing Tomahawk. Even though they're not in their playoff bracket anymore, they're still chasing them for a conference title.
And I think Mosinee right now, and it's not to say that the goaltending has been poor, but it's not been a stand on your head good. And that's the difference right now between Mosinee and Antigo, because you see a number of games. I mean, we talked about the Ram game, Regis Altoona McDonald beat Mosinee 5-4, and Mosinee had a 38-26 edge in shots. And then that was Saturday, and then also Saturday, Antigo beat Spooner 4-1, and I don't know how good Spooner is, but they put 9 shots on net to 21 for Antigo, and Antigo won 4-1 because this Austin Martinson is again having an incredible season with 48 saves, and right now I would say that again we talk about this often, that hockey is different, because if you're a football team and you run for 500 yards, you're going to win by about 7 touchdowns. If you're a hockey team and you outshoot somebody like Mosinee did early against Antigo, like 63-15, if it was like football, you'd win 10-1 or 10-0, and that game went to overtime. Right now, Antigo's got a goaltender that is winning hockey games for them almost single-handedly.
Yeah, he most certainly is. I mean, he's saving at .925 right now, and many of those games they're outshot. In some cases 2-1. And he's given them an opportunity to win. He's got 8 wins, 3 losses here. He's a 2029 grad, so he's a freshman. So this kid's got a lot of years to come.
He doesn't know any better at this point.
At this point, he's just playing varsity hockey to the best of his ability. And you look at his last 4 games: 42 shots on goal, 49 shots on goal, 50 shots on goal. I mean, so it's not for a shortage of business. He's a busy guy and certainly playing really well as a freshman.
What do you know about Wapaka? Do you know anything about Wapaka?
I know that their coach was really excited about their season. I think Coach Wright was really excited about what he had. I think their conference schedule gets a little bit tougher here on the back half of it as they lead into the conference tournament.
They're at Antigo tomorrow, which is interesting. I mean, it's because Antigo being 2-1 in the conference, while Wapaka 3-1. One of those teams is going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, boy, the way it's going with Antigo's, the way they've played, they're probably going to get outshot, and it's going to be a really tight game. So I don't know a lot about them. It'll be fun to watch that result and to see how that shakes out in the conference.
And Antigo goes to Tomahawk coming up on Monday. So, I mean, you talk about a couple of tests, and we'll find out if they're a true contender. I mean, if they win those 2 games, all of a sudden they're a contender in that conference.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some girls hockey. I'm going to say, is there anything wrong with the Storm?
I don't think so. I think they've got a bunch of kids that are learning how to play the game still at the varsity level. And you talked about your question earlier. Can freshmen come in and play? I think you can, but you're going to learn a lot real quick. And I think the Storm is doing that. They've got a lot of freshmen that are playing in their lineup that have had to adjust to playing the game at a different speed, thinking at a different speed, and gelling with some players that are a little bit older than them that maybe they haven't, like when you talk about hockey, like a lot of these teams have played together as they grow up. But when you have a freshman to come in and there's a junior senior, you probably haven't played with that player because they've always been a year above you as you go through youth hockey. So part of that is you have to find ways to gel a little bit, and sometimes it takes time.
This weekend, they got a couple of big challenges. They were supposed to play at Medford last night, but that was postponed. Western Wisconsin Stars, which I don't know what the deal is, to be honest with you, because according to the rankings, they're second in the state was Western Wisconsin. They're 7-5 overall. What's going on here? Do the coaches do they follow the other teams, or are the 5 losses so impressive that they can be number 2 in the state? I mean, I don't know. Did you vote in these rankings?
I voted random times. I mean,
How closely did you watch it? How much did you care about making those rankings? Right? Because when I see a team that's just barely over 500, ranked second in the state, it makes me scratch my head.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, Chad, you've said these are for entertainment purposes only.
But people do make a big deal out of it.
But they do. And you know, when you look at the losses that Western's got, they've got Bay Area, they lost 8-2. They lost to Blake, Minnesota 5-0. Lost to Eastview, Minnesota 4-2.
Okay.
Lost to Laverne. Beat Stillwater. I think Stillwater was ranked in the top 10 at that time.
I guess only one loss in Wisconsin.
When you look at the losses they've got, they're against Minnesota teams, and arguably you would say those teams are really good compared to the depth that Wisconsin high school hockey has on the girls' side. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. I mean, they got wins over Bloomington Jefferson. They've got wins over Hayward, wins over Chippewa Falls and Black River Falls. So when you look at the comparatively, they probably the game they probably wanted to play was that Hudson game.
So the Storm have Western Wisconsin Friday night, and then they play Saturday at Gentry Academy. And we saw the game last year when Gentry came and won it on a last-second goal. But obviously going to Minnesota will be a challenge. I mean, you've got a couple girls on this team. How important are these two games for Central Wisconsin to try to build a little bit of momentum?
Well, you're going to get two really good opponents. I mean, that's the biggest thing is you're going to be put in situations that you have to be prepared for, and two, hopefully give you some experience that you can draw on later in the season. Whether you win or lose, I think is open for debate. It's probably a comparable later on in a seeding meeting because it really doesn't have any impact in the, when you look at the head-to-head matchups in the sectional. I mean, they're gonna face two really good teams. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it, they've got to simplify the game a little bit, play a little bit. Some play might have to elevate a little bit in these games to be competitive because clearly, the Storm has relied on goaltending all year long and you want to try to give some different support to that goaltending because both goalies have played really well.
Does it feel close? Because you saw those games down at the Culver's Cup in Madison and that tough loss to Superior to wrap it up. They played well otherwise. Does it feel pretty close for the Storm?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need a full 51 minutes. And I think when you're playing a bunch of young kids, that's hard to do. That's really hard to do, especially when you're playing 3-3 as they did down there. When you look at the way they played their first game, they were able to compete and be able to draw on some of those experiences. It took a little time to get that game to where they wanted it to get to, but that's part of it too. You have to stack up shifts consistently, and when you're playing young, inexperienced kids, that takes time.
And also generally with girls hockey this year, I mean, you got Bay Area that has a very long win streak right now, but everybody else has been kind of knocking each other off. I mean, there's nobody with 1 or 2 losses. It's everybody with at least 3 losses. And so, I mean, it really looks wide open other than Bay Area right now. And as you know, I mean, injuries happen or illness happens. I mean, that can change very quickly. But if it wasn't for Bay Area, it would be completely a crapshoot at this point.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the girls' depth throughout the state, I think it's much. There's a lot more parity this year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you got to take Barry out of it because they're super deep at the moment. But that changes over time too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've seen it as the Storms come through here. Like some years they're really deep, some years they're building for the future and an experience. And so with girls hockey, I think when you see Lakeshore up there and you see their top 6 at the moment. And who's in it, it's a little bit different than it's been in the years past, but that doesn't mean that 7, 8, 9, 10 couldn't all argue to be somewhere in that top 6.
And some of these schools in the valley on the girls' side, like Wisconsin Valley Union and Black River Falls, I'm looking at some of these scores. See 1-0 game, USM and Union, 1-0 Black River Falls and Winona, Minnesota. It looks like for some of these teams, and we saw the Storm over at Black River Falls was a 2-0 game. It seems to be, for a lot of these teams right now, a struggle to score.
Yeah, I mean, there is a struggle to score, and I'd say that's probably collective throughout the state.
Yeah.
Goaltenders are really good across the state, and sometimes, like, with the girls' game right now, like, I think the teams that pass the puck well are going to find success. I mean, watch Bay Area a couple times. They move the puck really well. They move it on the power play. They move it on the PK, like they move it on the line rush. So when you look at that that's how you're going to find success. And I think the Storm specifically is building on that to be a better passing team and to move pucks. And but I think that's where you see the parity, though, is if you got a team, they're at the age now where you can carry the puck up the ice, and unless you're an elite shooter, rarely are you going to beat a goalie, clean, because these goalies are good.
Put your coach hat on as it's January the 7th right now. What is your normal thought process at this point of the season in terms of, because you've had a lot, you've seen quite a bit from your teams up to this point, and there's still quite a bit of road in front of you. What's the mindset for a coach at this point of the season?
Well, number one, stay healthy through January. I mean, that's a big part of it. So that means you're tailoring, as Coach said earlier, like you're tailoring practices, because now you're into the grind of it. Like you've practiced a ton, you've played a ton. So now you got to find the fun piece to keep things fresh, and maybe it's a little bit different practices, but you're looking for your team to find that growth in that middle third of the season. And most of the teams now are in the second half of that third because they've played 10, 12 games up to this point. So you've got half of your season left in a 6-week window. So you've got a lot of games coming, and it's about being fresh. I think when you get to this time of year, you really want to make sure that as a coach, you've tried things. You've experimented with your line combinations. You've experimented on your power play and your penalty kill to fully prepare your lineup for depth and making sure that you're ready come early February when the playoffs start that second week.
Well, on the same lines, we see some teams that have played a lot more games than others. And some of these teams are going to be playing a lot of games, whether it's hockey or basketball coming down the stretch. Where would you want to be? Because it feels like you say, be physically and mentally ready. Sometimes you may be playing too much in the run-up to the playoffs.
I mean, that's the challenge. I mean, when we would build the schedule, you wanted to make sure there was balance so that you weren't playing a ton of games at the end. You wanted to make sure that And sometimes it depends on your team. Maybe you need to play a lot of games. Maybe that's the focus level of your team to be able to we need to play games to be good. But I think, as you tailor into your season and how you build it, the teams that play a ton at the end, I think, get really tired when it comes to the playoffs. And as a coach, you want to make sure that they're as fresh as they can be going into that, because you lose weight room time. You lose, just general health time for their bodies. They get Sundays off, and it just becomes an absolute grind for them for that month. So it'll be interesting, because as you saw in the Valley for the basketball side, like there's not a lot of games that have been played. There's a lot of games to be played yet.
And that's the exciting part for me. I'm still one of those traditionalists where, you like seeing some of these great non-conference matchups, but boy, there's still that energy in a gym or an arena that is just different for a conference game, isn't there?
Totally. The big part is, Chad, the fans get to come.
Yeah.
You get both sides of it. It's not a 2-hour bus ride and you're getting moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas only. You're getting students, you're getting other community members to come out, and that's what makes high school sports so fun.
Absolutely. So thanks to Jake Schalow, the DC Everest head basketball coach on the boys' side, Tyler Bars, the Mosinee hockey senior, for being our guests here tonight. It's good to be back. It felt like a long time.
Chad, it's been a long time. I mean, but here's the thing: we're gonna have a lot to talk about over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, but we have a lot of interesting guests and a lot of interesting results to talk about. So join us every Wednesday from 6 till 8 p.m. and we'll be back next week for another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.